We're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. We're back for another year of our fun madness, is what I call it. So we will be, my name is Brenda Montero. I'm actually Brenda Garcia, whoa. Brenda Garcia, I'm the Director of Community Services, which includes education and the Recreation Center. I've been working for Viejas for, I think it's 18 years, maybe 19. Time flies when you're having fun. It's nice to see all of you here. Megan and I were just talking about how back in we had the simpler times when we can actually have this tutor orientation in one of the little conference rooms around a little table that I think seats 9. That would never happen anymore. But this is a nice thing. We have a lot more support, which is great. Great for our kids. Hey! Doris is back. So grab a seat. There's some seats up here. Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, it's blocked off.
Oh, it's blocked. There's 2 right here. You can get in right there. Just to go over what our day would be like, we're going to have our presentation from 11:30 to 1. And then the tutors the non-high school tutors will have an opportunity to go have lunch after we finish our presentations, our orientation. And then high school tutors will stay for another portion of the presentation. But everyone will be at lunch for sure by 1. 1 to 1:30, and then we'll have a speaker come in and discuss the trauma-informed care from 1:20 to 2:30. Hey, it's just creative. Sit down. There's a seat over here and seat over here. Another one over there. 1 year ago, look at how nice, all of us. I think most of us are probably back, and we've added on to our team, which we're excited about. And we're going to go through introductions. Everybody just introduce themselves. Let's see. And so I'm Brenda Garcia. I've already introduced myself, and so we can go this way. We're recording this, so we have to clip it on here. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Milani. I'm going to be in charge of the snacks and the rides this year.
Tell a little about yourself.
Oh, about myself?
Yeah.
Like, what about? I have a baby, and this is going to be my 3rd year here.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you.
What? Oh, this is not going to work well. Howka, everyone. My name is Noelle Shaw. I am the guidance counselor here at Viejas Tribal Education Center. I work primarily with the middle school and high school students, and I do guidance and career counseling with them, talking about their future, setting goals, kind of that positive mindset. That's what I do. I'm a mom. I have a 6-month-old daughter and a husband who's 27, and he's also my kid, kind of. But that's me, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Howka, my name is Megan Lancaster. I am the Academic and Enrichment Program Coordinator for K-12 programs. You'll be dealing with me a lot this year, so I'm sorry in advance. I'm the crazy one. I have been here for, I think, I was once in your shoes, so in between being a contract tutor and now coming on as staff, I've been here, I think, for almost 9 years total. It's crazy, time flies. I'll probably never leave. So I look forward to this school year. And we're not going to have to do this every 2 seconds.
I'm Jermaine Brown, community educator. I've been here. This is November. I marked my 11th year here. I work with the high school kids, high school academic liaison at Granite Hills, and we have a couple kids at other schools. But I'm that connection piece between Viejas, VTech, and the high school for the high school students.
Videos? Okay. So welcome back. As you can see, there is a flyer with, and this is just one page. It's like 3 pages of all of our programs that we go throughout the year. Some of you lead these programs. Some of you are a major part of these programs. but this is ongoing. And that picture of me is so appropriate with like, sometimes I would think I should have just fallen off the boat and gotten eaten by that shark because of the madness that goes on. But it's fun. It's always fun having to do, and it's nice to hear as we're going through and you guys are telling how many years you've been here. It's like, whoa, this is one big thing that we pride ourselves on, is having that consistency with our students and building those relationships. And I know a lot of you have those relationships, which we really appreciate. And I think that's what makes us successful. So do you want me to go through each program? I don't know. Yeah, we do a lot. And a lot of you are already familiar with them.
So unfortunately, Derek isn't here, but there's a flyer for Club Rec. It's held every day after the kids are done with tutoring. They head over to the rec. So once you all are done torturing them, they can go torture the rec staff every day from 4 to 6. That will begin on the 5th of September, and it's every day, Monday through Friday, from 4 to 6 for all the youngsters.
Okay, so we have some housekeeping items to keep track of before we start going through the requirements for this school year. So in the packet that you have at your seat in the envelope is a copy of this entire presentation along with copies of the flyers for each program, so you can have everything in detail. Also in that packet is paperwork that we need from you today. We have the confidentiality agreement, so that's due today before you leave. The emergency contact, that's due today before you leave. And then also the memorandum of agreement, that is also due today before you leave. Please read over this to make sure you're clear on all the requirements and everything. If you don't have time during the lunch break to read over it and fill it out, then you can stay after the end of the orientation and sit and read through it and complete it at that point. Do you have that clicker?
This year, we're asking that you all create a Gmail account. There is, if you, oh, sorry. I was wondering what you were doing. If you take a look, it's pretty clear. If you all need help, I'm here to help you out, but just make your email VTech Tutor, first initial, last name. Of course, if you are familiar with Gmail, you can merge your email accounts. So if you have a main account, you can merge this account with it and it'll come directly to your email. But if you all could create a Gmail account, that'd be great. An email? It's right on the board. But it's VTech Tutor, your first initial, last name. It'll all come through lowercase. It doesn't matter. It'll come through lowercase once you send it.
And then once you set up this email address, if you could email me from that email address by August 10th at 5 p.m. So we have record of that. That's fine. And then it looks like Carrie and Abby and Mercedes walked in. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick?
I'm Carrie. I'm Abby. Carrie and I work at the preschool. We're co-teachers with the younger kids.
I'm Mercedes. I work in the community outreach area. I also work in the language department, and I go on site with Debbie, and we do the language.
I do community with her too.
And the baby that's being passed around, that's Milan's baby.
This is Mamie and a couple mascots of the school. The newest one.
Okay, so more housekeeping. In order to be a tutor for the 2017-2018 school year, you are required to be CPR certified. Your certification must be clear up and through June 21st, 2018. If your certification is not cleared until that date, you will need to renew it in order for it to be cleared up until that date. If your name is listed on the bullet points right there, that means that you are already in the clear and you do not need to worry about it. If your name is not up there, that means that I need your CPR certification. Please email it to me or drop a copy in the lockbox outside of my office. On some of the slides, there's this scary, creepy face. I, like I said earlier, am the crazy one who have to hunt people down, and it is the creepy face. Please don't make me stalk you to get stuff turned in. So please, when you see a due date, mark your calendar, add a note, anything, so I don't have to come after you. It's a lot of work for me to follow up with each of you individually. So I definitely appreciate the organization, which a lot of you are great at, and just make sure to make a note when I need something, the day, the time, everything, so it's turned in by that time. Questions on the CPR certification? Okay. The next certification is everyone needs to be a mandated report, go through the mandated reporter training. Some of you already went through that last year. You were given a certificate. If you went through it last year and you were given that certificate, you need to turn a copy of the certificate into me by August 16th. I did not keep copies of these certificates, so if you got the certificate, turn in a copy to my lockbox, email, fax it, whatever you need to do. If you have not gone through mandated reporter training, there is a website that you can do the module online. If you need that website, email me and I will send you the hyperlink. Debbie Stein, does anybody remember who did the cultural sensitivity training last year? I think the K-1 group did it, and then some of the high school tutors. Okay, so we're doing the same exact thing this year just to bring more awareness to this and to the language. There's 2 dates for this training. Even if you did it last year, you need to do it again this year. The 2 dates offered are October 4th and December 6th. These are both Wednesdays. It'll be from 4:30 to 5 p.m. More details will come regarding the location when it gets closer. Just pick whichever date you can go to, mark it on your calendar, and you'll get the details as it gets closer. Or actually, it'll take place here. Perfect.
Do we cancel camps then? Yeah. Those times?
It's minimum days, so yes.
Oh, so
Yeah.
just come in. Cool.
Yep.
That works.
Okay. Tutor Kumei lessons, Yvette.
Okay, so last year Mercedes started out with the language sessions, and I kind of took over for her. And there seemed to be a want for an extra day, so we're doing it Tuesday and Wednesdays, 5:15 to 6 here in the blue room. So you shouldn't be lost. It's right here. There's some information on that slide, how to track your time here. You do get extra credit on your tutor expectation tracker when you do come, so that does help on that. The start date is going to be, we had a date, the second week, back to school, so September 12th. So that's the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday after that too. So they're both going to be the same, so pick a day, and I hope you guys can all come, because the language with the kids is a high priority for all of us. And a lot of these kids are going from like KRP 4 to 6 hours a day in the language, and then going to Alpine schools and maybe getting 2 hours total a week because they get it at lunchtime, and if they attend rec, then they get it at STEAM. That's only 2 hours. So we see them at a minimum of 4 hours. So we're a big resource for that, and as much as we're Kuchimayos, they can be your Kuchimayo as well. They're very knowledgeable. So I hope to see you guys all.
All right, so one of the programs we have is the College to Career Days, and we look for students and staff wearing college gear or career gear. So this means like t-shirts from the colleges you attended or colleges you like, or career shirts. Like, for example, my husband works for a software engineering company and they have a shirt, so I wear it on those days. And the reason why we want to do that is to engage students in thinking about going to college and kind of looking at different careers as well. So if the students are wearing it, they get kind of a stamp. If you guys are wearing it, you get a boost on your student expectation tracker. So definitely encourage you to wear them. So we're starting these on are we doing it Wednesdays? Yes, this year, Wednesdays. So look forward to seeing you all in your gear.
Okay, so last year, some of you may have been familiar with the K-1 group. The K-1 group last year was run under a lead tutor who then worked with other tutors to assign skill building activities, communicate with teachers. They kind of created their own community within a classroom with the K-1 students. We're now extending this sort of mentality with the 2nd, 3rd grade group and the 4th and 5th grade group. K-1 is going to be led again by Emily Wallace, who is in Chicago right now, I believe, so she's not here. Yvette is going to lead the 2nd, 3rd grade group, and then Penny is going to lead the 4th and 5th grade group. All of the students, so where all their information is going to be posted, student contact information, parent contact information, testing scores, report cards, IEPs, 504s, SSTs, any information you should want on your student will be in this tutoring binder. If you work in the high school center, which is the building over by Tribal Hall, everyone will have a tutor bin, which looks just like this on the slide. High school tutors can leave their student binders in the tutoring bins. If you work in the library, if you work in KRP, or if you work up in here, you'll need to pick up your tutor binder on Mondays and turn it in on Thursdays. So the reason for this is sometimes we get parents that call us with questions, and so we need to have easy access to these tutor binders to pull them out and open it up and list like, hey, your student worked on this was communicated to you, so then we're not having to go on the hunt for these tutor binders and chase them down. Any questions on that? Okay.
Okay, a quick note on your bins. I was a stickler about this last year, and I'm going to be a stickler about it again. So we want to keep things organized, just as an example to the students of how important organization is. So here's some examples of bad bins. When you get your bins this school year, they will be organized, so try and keep them that way, clean, and so you know what everything is. Those are examples to your students, so please help us create that work ethic to keep things organized.
Okay, going back to the tutor binders, we're gonna go through this in detail now. If you open it up right now, you'll see that there is an empty clear sheet. On this slide, you see this page right here, which is the student information sheet. This sheet lists all the information regarding the student, so their name, their date of birth, their school, their phone number, their address. It lists all their parents' information, so you'll have their parents' contact information, their phones, their emails. It'll list their on-site support. So for example, Penny is providing on-site support to 4th and 5th grade students. If you're working with a 4th and 5th grade student, her information will be posted under on-site support. It also has information regarding their login to any student portals to check grades. So you'll have their username and their password. It has their whole schedule listed, so you'll have all their their teacher names, the classes, and the teacher contact information. It'll list where they can be transported, so at the end of tutoring, if they can get a ride to the rec, if they can walk home, if they get picked up, if they can walk to the rec. You also will have access to all staff contact information, and then at the bottom is rec contact information for Derek and Ashley.
Megan, this isn't in the tutor binder that we...
Correct. It'll be on there on the first day, yeah. The next page in your student binder is Yoke-Weir PE. That means student attendance. So what needs to happen each day when your students come in is we're going to get to more backpack organization in a minute, but along with holding your student right when they arrive for organizing their backpacks and their binders, you also need to have them initial if they were present or not. So you'll take this paper out of their tutoring binder, have it ready for them right when they walk in, and they initial the day that they were present. At the bottom, there's a key to show if they weren't present, what you will mark. NS is for a no-show, which we'll go over no-shows in a little bit. EX is for an excused absence, and then C is if we're closed any of those days. These are really important to do. This helps us with tracking student attendance. It helped us with tracking the percentage of no-shows last year, the percentage of student daily attendance, and the percentage of excused absences. So make sure just when your student arrives to have this out and ready for them to initial. There's a couple dates on the right-hand side. I need copies of these on January 8th. A copy, don't give me the original, just a copy of student attendance from August to January. And then June 21st, which is after the last day of tutoring, you'll need to give me the original of August to June. Next in the tutor binder are the daily tutor logs. These are actually this is all important. So on these logs, it's what you write, communication to parents, assignments completed, everything. So at the top, you'll see the different grade levels are going to be a little bit different this year. So if you look at your tutor log in the upper right-hand corner, it should say a note for what grade level your log is. The idea behind all the grade logs are the same though. You are to list your student name, your name, the date, the time they arrive, the time they depart, their assignments completed, what they need to finish, their behavior, if skill building was completed, if so, what did they do for skill building, and they need to complete a reflection. The reflections are different for the K-1st grade students. They do rhyming words. 2nd, 3rd graders, 4th, 5th graders, 6th through 12th graders do basically a sentence about what they learned during school or learned during tutoring. And there's also a couple places to log communication. Again, more detail is better, so if assignments completed, it lists homework. I want to pull my hair out because then I'm like, okay, what did they do for homework? Did they do math? Did they read a book? If it says read a book, what book did they read? What pages did they read? Everything needs to be listed on there. It should be filled with information. Spelling homework. Okay, what page was the spelling homework? What week was the spelling homework? Anything like that. The title of the assignments, the page numbers of the assignments, everything. If there's ever anything listed and needs to be completed, it is then your responsibility to communicate to the parents that students need to complete it at home. So this is kind of a CYA, so needs to finish in the communication area. It should say contacted dad, contacted mom, and notified them that they need to finish this. Yes.
Something that really helped me with this, because I was guilty of not writing much detail in the work completed. So for new tutors, the purpose of that is so if parents contact and say, oh my, or they completed that, maybe you can go back and find exactly what was completed that day. So that's the reasoning.
Exactly. So when you turn,
Sorry, I just
Yeah.
have another thing. I think people thought I went a little crazy, but I liked to write when they had read naturally and writing camp and stuff, because it helped me know like why was there like a gap, why didn't she get very much done that day, and so it helped me to look back and be like, oh, she didn't read naturally. That helped me to write that down.
no, that's a really good idea. So almost when I look at these logs, it should be so much writing and so much information that I don't even want to read it. When you turn these in bi-weekly with your invoices. We don't throw them away, so all your hard work that you put on these is respected. We scan all of them and save them to student files. So I could go to the computer right now and pull up Raven's daily tutor log back from last October, and I can see she was with Lizesh, she got here at this time, worked on this, this, and this. Any questions on this? Okay.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Also, it's really helpful to make sure that you're writing down the page numbers and the assignments, because I had some students that didn't like to turn in their assignments. So I would be able to go back and look and be like, well, we did do this, why didn't you turn it in? Or, okay, we didn't do this, did you do it at home, kind of thing. So it's really important to make sure you're super using.
Yes, and that's a good point.
Remember, I went to you a few times, like,
Yeah.
can you pull this out for me? 'Cause I'm pretty sure we did it.
Yep, no, that's a really good point. So the next section in the tutor binder is going to be, actually this point right here on the log where it says do not enable students, one of those things is don't do anything for them. So help them through the process if they need to, ask them questions to pull it out of their brains, don't organize their backpacks for them, do not do their work for them, obviously. Don't do anything for them. If anything, challenge them to have that higher level thinking and to push forward. Okay. Tutor binders, the next section is the IEP section. If your student has an IEP or a 504 or an SST, a copy of that information will be listed in here. If your student is on any one of these documents, it is your responsibility to review these and know exactly what sort of modifications are being made for your student and what their annual goals are. It's your responsibility to know when meetings are coming up, to ask the parents for meeting dates and times, to talk to the teachers, and to even communicate with the students' teachers more to see what specifically can they work on here to help them meet their goals. The next two sections are for the MAP test results and report cards. When you get here on the first day of tutoring, your student will have their latest MAP test results in there from last school year and their latest report card in their tutor binder. This will hopefully give you more information to get a little more background on your student. MAP test results are only for 2nd through 8th grade students in Alpine Union School District. They also have a resource on Alpine Union School District's webpage where you can go on there and do skill building activities to better prepare them for the MAP test and being successful in their classroom. And their report cards will be posted in the section after that, and that will be for K through 12 students. The calendar section, everyone's tutoring binder will have the Viejas calendar, which lists all holidays. All the holidays coincide with school calendars. If there's ever anything off on there, then we'll contact you to make arrangements. Some of the binders will have school calendars in there, but if you arrive on that first day and your student's school calendar is not in the tutoring binder, it's your responsibility to go on the school website and print out the student's school calendar.
Megan, we'll be getting all this, right? And it would help the camps if we got all that.
Yes, you'll get all the information also. Okay. So along with working with a student on their homework and on skill building activities prepared from you, we also have students complete quarterly college and career assignments. We have cumulative portfolios for our students in K through 12. Actually, they start in KRP, which has all their report cards, all their camp progress reports. It has enrollment forms for other camps, summer camps, spring break camps. It has examples of their work and everything, including this. So every quarter, you're going to be responsible for completing a college and/or career assignment with your student, which will be included in the tutoring binder. These are the due dates for when they are due: October 31st, January 31st, March 22nd, and May 31st. They're always due to my lockbox. Just a heads up, don't put anything on my desk. I will lose it. Stick it in the lockbox. And this is another thing, please don't make me hunt you down. Make a note on your calendar of the due date so I don't have to stalk anybody. Okay. The next section is the tutor resources. This was put into effect last school year, but we're gonna take it a little bit of a step further. Some tutors were out last year and it just gets a little confusing as to what days, what times students have camps on and what they can work on if they don't have homework, or what is their homework that they need to work on. So if you're ever a covering tutor working with another student, this is a good section to reference because it will include their camp schedule, so you'll know when they have camps. It'll also explain what they need to do every day for homework, and then it will include activities for them to work on for skill building. This is your responsibility to complete and have it in your tutoring binder by September 28th. It's also your responsibility to update throughout the school year when needed. So if in the beginning of the year they need to work on certain skills and it changes that they mastered those skills, then you need to then go back and update your tutor resources page and include the work that needs to be completed. So again, this is due September 28th, and keep it in the binder. I'll be going through all the binders and checking that it's completed.
All right, after school tutoring. For high school students, tutoring will begin on the 16th, which is the day after their first day of school. They begin on, and tutoring will begin on the 5th, which is the following Tuesday. For high school kids, you should receive your student schedule and information by the 10th. And we ask that by the 14th, you contact parents and teachers regarding you tutoring these students. Your scheduled time for tutoring, it matters, it's huge. Just as well as the students are supposed to be here on time, you should be here for your students on time. If your student is, whatever time your student is scheduled to be here, make sure that they're here for that allotted time. If they're done early, work on skill building for that time that they're scheduled to be here for tutoring. Prep time for K through 5 is 30 minutes and 6 through 12 is 45 minutes. So you can record your prep time for your students accordingly.
It should be put away. There should be no reason that they need their cell phone out. They can use a calculator, they can use a computer, not even music on their cell phone. It's just a temptation. Put the cell phone away. Some of us have the cell phone jails where the student checks their cell phone in when they get there. Put it in the jail, put it away. Please make sure to enforce this. I know last year we had to go around to a couple tutors and remind it and enforce it, and it kind of puts us in the bad position of always having to be the bad guy, which isn't fun for anybody. So this is a huge rule. So no cell phones. Have them put their cell phone away. If it continues to be an issue, you can then ask me to intervene, Brenda to intervene, Noelle, Jermaine, where we can take it away and have a parent have to come pick up their cell phone.
Okay, I'm in charge of the snacks again this year. Like it says, it's a take it or leave it snack. If the kids don't like apples, I'm asking the tutors to please not go into the supply room and get them goldfish, because that drives me crazy. Because you got it. So if the kids don't like the snack, then they won't get a snack. But you guys are more welcome to bring them snacks if you guys want to. But what I provide is what they get.
On to the tutor expectation trackers, which I know is one of everyone's favorite thing in the whole wide world. This is basically a running log on your performance. Are you meeting requirements or are you not meeting requirements? So you have a copy of this in your packet to give you a glance at what's expected of you, so there should be no questions. One of the biggest things, are you communicating with parents weekly and documenting it? Are you communicating with teachers weekly and documenting it? Are the daily tutor logs completed 100%? All the other requirements are listed on there, which you are required to complete and submit by the due date. Based on that, you are then given a percentage of meeting expectations or not meeting expectations. You're expected to be at a minimum of 95%. Honestly, 100% is impossible. We don't expect 100%, but we do expect a minimum of 95%. The average for last year was 94.31%, which was a huge improvement from the year before. So a huge props to all of you. Thank you very, very much. Any questions before moving on from the tutor expectation tracker? Because I know this thing can be kind of a pain in the butt. Nope. Okay. So with the tutor expectation tracker, you will get your own copy of it at least once a month. If you ever want to see it in between then and the time you receive a copy of it, just come to me and I have it saved on the computer and I can print it out for you. Tutor Plan for Success. This is a plan that you will be put on if you fall below 90%. So again, you're expected to be at 95%. If you go below 90%, you are then put on a plan for success, which will be meeting with me once a month. And we come up with a plan to see, okay, you're not meeting this expectation. What can I do better to help you to do better in this department? What are you maybe not understanding? Or what resources can we give you to better help you do the job? If at any time you fall below 90%, to be like completely clear, there is the possibility that you will be terminated and or your pay will be cut. So any questions on that? Okay.
Okay, so while students are here for tutoring, they are exposed to camps. We have math camp for high school, writing camp for elementary and middle school, and read naturally for elementary and middle school. Writing camp will be Mondays through Thursdays. Both my writing camp and reading camp is Monday through Thursday.
Time on that has been changed.
Correct.
Okay. But more specifically for high school kids, and we'll meet with the high school tutors after this orientation, but the math camp for high school kids is going to be mandatory for high school students who have a D or an F in their in any of their math classes. Of course, we're welcome. All high school kids are welcome to it, but it will be mandatory for students who are below a C.
Of 2 students at once. So when a student goes to read naturally, which are normally 15-minute intervals, then you'll have your other student during that time one-on-one. Writing camp is normally scheduled after their tutoring hours. So then after they finish tutoring with you, they would then go to writing camp. Yeah. Does that clarify?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just want to make sure
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it.
Yeah. And then Doris is joining the Read Naturally, Read Live group this year, and she's going to be working with the middle school students on it.
Oh, and one more thing, if there's something that goes on with a student it's super, very serious, please let us know, like somebody dies in the family or something, because sometimes they come in and we don't know and they come in tears or they just don't want to talk about it. Please let us know so we can be extra sensitive to their needs.
Yeah. Camps are mandatory, by the way. Students have to go if they're on the schedule, even if they have a lot of homework that day. Too bad, so sad. Go to camp, do the homework, stay late at tutoring, do your homework at home. Camps are mandatory no matter what. I was going to say one more thing about camps. What was the other reminder?
They're awesome.
They're awesome. Yeah. They are awesome. Lisa. Not this year. We're focusing on writing and fluency. Yeah. Students are not just put on the schedule, so it's not we get a registration of all students and they all automatically go on the Read Naturally schedule or the writing camp schedule. We look at their scores on their report cards. We look at their scores on all their standardized testing. We see where they're placing grade level wise. If they're below grade level, they are put on the camp schedule. Once they either get an updated report card or a standardized testing assessment, if they show that they're at grade level or higher, they are then taken off of the camp schedule. So sometimes the students don't want to go to camps. That can be used as an incentive. Like, hey, your MAP test is coming up next month. Do awesome on your MAP test, which they are all more than capable of doing. Once they reach their goal, they're taken off the schedule.
Unless someone like Becca or Jermaine like vouched for them, like they went and met with the teacher and the teacher said, okay, then, but you wouldn't get that notice, right? Because Becca would have said, okay, they're missing the assignment, it's resolved.
Or even hold a student more accountable and say if you are turning in these assignments and your teacher's not updating their grade portal as often as they should, okay, go to your teacher and get a note and have the teacher sign the note saying that they turned it in. Have them take more responsibility.
And have them show it to the teacher.
Usually check grades on, usually grades check on Monday, so that's when you'll see a bunch of missing.
Okay, so rides. We added 2 more rides, I see. 4:15 and the 5:15. But please do not send your kids up to ask about the rides. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'm 5 minutes late, 2 minutes late. But nothing drives Megan more crazy than kids wandering around disrupting people. So if you guys can keep them until I call the ride, that'd be awesome.
And where do they go once you call the ride?
Usually we just meet right out here on the ramp. Yeah. Okay.
And you'll hear it on the intercom. Those that are new, you'll actually hear it in the intercom. Milan will get on there and 4:40, 4:30 rides or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Binders. The Viejas students are college and career bound. This, for example, I think she put one like a door decorating contest example from before. This is why we need it, because of the portfolios that we have our students create. And like I said, we do it in preschool level. So all of our students, by the time they leave here, should have a portfolio with all their work, including these college assignments, including life launchers, things that they do with Noel, all their MAP scores, their report cards. And if ever you're interested in looking at it, you can ask the leads. We have them all saved, and we update them, try to update them throughout the school year. So we're hoping that everybody leaves here with all of their assignments, all their work, not all, but the stuff that we keep that are listed. And also to show parents, look at what your child has done, or if they need it when they go to college, have some of their samples from their writing work and their SAT scores, ACT scores. We keep all of that in there as well.
And I just went to the University of Oregon, and they have this process where if you didn't do too good in your SAT or PSAT, they'll take a portfolio of your work. So what this does is creates another option for students to use when they're applying to college, especially because traditionally students of color don't do well on SAT and ACT. So we are here creating that extra buy-in for them into those colleges.
So with the portfolio, we're helping the kids build that throughout the year. And is that how that?
Yes.
And it's what's assigned on here. So like I said, like the college, like the door decorating contest and all those assignments, you'll see them in your binder. But that's where we're placing them. So we want to show you why you are doing those with your kids so that we can place them into their portfolios.
And why they also do like Read Naturally or Writing Camp, because all of those things go into this portfolio.
Every single student enrolled in our programs are scheduled for after-school tutoring, and then dependent on scores are then scheduled for camps. This is covered by the tribe. So the tribe funds the education center. They're giving us X amount of money to pay for everything. So that means that if a student does not show for tutoring, it costs the tribe money, which is unnecessary. We then are responsible for charging parents to reimburse the tribe for money spent. If a student does not show to tutoring, which means you were not notified that they were not coming by 10 a.m. the morning of, that is a no-show. The only exception to the 10 a.m. notification is if there was a family emergency, if there was a medical emergency, or they went home from school sick. This has to be super consistent. One of the problems I had last year were parents were getting upset because they were getting charged sometimes for no-shows and other times not for no-shows, so there wasn't that consistency. You have to be notified by 10 a.m. If your student is a no-show, you have to email me the day of, at which point I then invoice the parents for reimbursement. Questions on that?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Megan, as far as camps go, the tutors have to be notified by 10 a.m. When do the tutors, because usually the parents don't notify the camps. So some do, but so do the tutors then notify us?
Good question. Yes. So tutors, if you are notified that your student is not coming in, it is then your responsibility to notify the camp instructor if their student will not be at camp that day. So the total amount for no-shows last year was almost $3,200. It's a ton of money. If you break it down, that's a 53% increase from the year before. We did get stricter with these guidelines, so there is a reason for the increase in that regard. But then that could have been money spent on tutoring. That could have been money spent on another camp. It's a lot of money. It could have been money spent on on-site support. So it's really important that you notify me of no-shows so we can get reimbursement of those funds to use those funds elsewhere, because then it's just a waste of $3,200. Yes.
Since I'm on campus, last year I had 2 of my students, and I tutored them. So if they're not at school, and I know they're not at school, does that count as notification?
No. The parent has to take responsibility for notifying you.
And do the parents know this?
Yes, and they sign a contract.
Okay.
And it's in the policies and procedures. Cheyenne.
Tutors could be in charge of reminding parents of that, right?
But not holding their hand.
Correct.
Like, they have to take responsibility for it.
Sometimes they notify you first.
So then,
They don't notify us.
yeah, if they notify me, that's a good question. I then direct them to notify you directly. So even if they notify me, if they do not notify you directly, it doesn't count. Like, they have to notify the tutor directly. Because sometimes I'm not here to notify you, and then it can add up if I have 5 no-shows in a day notifying tutors. So trying to train them to notify tutors. They know.
They know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this isn't anything new. Yeah.
They're the ones having to pay this back, so it's hurting their wallets. That's why we're hoping that they start understanding you have to do this or else you're paying back.
So if they have camp and tutoring, then you're double.
Yep. Cheyenne.
It's pretty rare, but last year I had a student that wouldn't say anything and showed like 15 minutes until the end, so they missed camps and stuff. What do I do in that situation?
So in the case of excessive tardiness, that's still technically funds being wasted. Approach me, and then I'll then talk with the parent about the proper attendance. Yeah. This is data collected last year for 1st through 5th grade students. So basically, these students were on the trimester system. Does this thing work? Yeah. So this is trimester 1, trimester 2, trimester 3. We took their trimester 1 scores, compared them to trimester 2, trimester 3 to see where there was growth, where there was not growth. Trimester 2 is the best judge of where their academic standing is. This is the first time ever in a trimester 2, in any trimester for that matter, that there were growth in all grades and all subjects, which is huge. So all green in this was a huge accomplishment. If you look at it in detail though, you can see that most of our students on a whole, on average, are still below grade level. We have a long way to go. They're lower than they should be, hence why we're providing all these resources. They're more than capable of reaching and closing that gap, so just keep on trucking and doing whatever you did last year, because it's working.
The high school, we monitor their progress, semester 1 and semester 2. The students have the weekly progress report that Becca had on there. I'm not sure if you guys know what it is in your packet. I do the same thing for the high school students. It's weekly. Last year, the high school kids, they wound up with a 2.65 cumulative GPA. It's that kind of overshadowed the 8 students we had with a 3.0 or higher, and 4 of those students had a 3.5 or higher. So these progress reports and keeping track of everything really helps the students, really helps the parents understand where the students are. So make sure that you're thorough with these the weekly progress reports.
Monthly tutor emails go out the first Wednesday of every month. This is in place to us actually physically sitting together in a room and having a meeting. I know that most of you have a second job on top of this, so time is limited. These emails include certain information, due dates, upcoming events, requirements, nominations, shout outs, anything like that. These are emailed to you, again, like I said, the first Wednesday of every month. You're then given a week to review any of the contents and then submit a signed copy to my lockbox the following Wednesday by 5:00 p.m. This is another thing, please honor the due dates. Make sure to review and sign by the dates they're due. I'll always send it out in an email listing the due date and the due date time. Questions? Okay. Absence requests are required to be filled out if you're going to be out of the center for any reason. Obviously, we all need days off here and there. You're not penalized for this. We do keep track of how many absences you do have during the school year and then average out how many absences the tutors and all had. So if you're higher over the average, it's not that great of a thing, so just please monitor that. Please turn in your absence request prior to being absent. You are responsible for finding coverage with your students, so if you're going to be absent on a day, then you then need to network with the other tutors and find out who can cover for you and make sure that everything's communicated so that other tutor knows and they know what to expect.
Camps don't usually have yeah. If we're out, camps won't be happening.
Right.
If we're out, we'll send you an email
Yeah.
if your student is scheduled for that day.
You also have a copy of the invoice you'll be using on a bi-weekly basis along with the dates they're due and the invoice number. Today's invoice is due today, which we'll go over again in a minute. Please make sure you keep your pay confidential. Turn in your invoice to my lockbox by the due dates and the due date times. Along with the invoice, you staple the daily tutor logs for the 2 previous weeks. Please make sure those are in daily order so that they don't need to be gone through and organized. At the bottom of the invoice, you'll see a check-in, check-out time. This is kind of for us just to help monitor who's in the buildings, if the buildings are meeting the needs, everything like that. And the prep time, again, K through 5th grade students get half an hour per week. 6th through 12th grade students get 0.75 hours a week. The invoice number, where's that little doohickey? Thank you. So on this sheet right here, this has the dates for the invoice when they're due. This is then the invoice number. Please make sure that the invoice number is written exactly how it's written here. Otherwise, I have to give it back to you and you have to correct, which can cause a delay in processing, meaning you will then most likely get your paycheck at a later date.
Reimbursement, sometimes we aren't available to supply the supplies that you need for your kids. So if you do have to come out of pocket to get some supplies for your kids, make sure that it's approved by Megan first, and then submit it. Make sure you submit the form completed. If it's not, it would be returned to you, and as she said with the invoice, if it's not returned, it will cause a delay in your reimbursement.
Hello. Room assignment, so this is going to be where you're working out of with your students. It'll be the same every day, so you'll have your tutor station with your supplies that your students report to every day. I'll be sending out your room assignments to you by the end of this week. It'll be basically a map of all the buildings so you can see where you will be working.
IT issues, they will happen for sure. VTech staff is very, very busy. So if you guys come across an issue that's above changing the e-cartridge, go ahead and contact Gary. His information is right here, email and his direct line. He'd be able to come over and help you out with those things if we aren't able to help you out. As I said, we get pretty busy, so it may be best and easiest to just contact Gary.
This year we are trying something new. So we usually have our tutor of the month, and it's usually based on parent, staff feedback. But this time we want you to be the ones to nominate someone. So you'll have a form like this where you can nominate a tutor monthly, and that will be the ones who will be recognized. And as you know, we have them framed, and they get a bonus. So I'm sure it'll be included in our emails, monthly emails, so that you guys can nominate someone you think is going above and beyond. Oh, I'm sorry. That's mine. VTech morale. So as most of you know, we try to keep it as positive as possible here. But we know, especially working in groups, that we tend to, excuse me, receive information that may be confidential, things that maybe we shouldn't be discussing with others, especially around students, and even with parents. We want to make sure we're as positive as possible, especially if you receive, let's say, complaints from parents. Please refer them to us. And let's not, we've had instances where we come back and parents are like, oh yeah, the tutor agrees with me that my student shouldn't be doing A, B, C, and D. Well, if there's a certain complaint or there's an issue, refer it back to Megan or I so that we can discuss it instead of it being a conversation that they have just with you. We can always sit down and if there's something that maybe you don't think the student should be assigned, and I'm speaking more like camps, like if they shouldn't, don't feel that it should be a writing camp or a math camp or whatever it may be. That's something that we can discuss together. It shouldn't be an issue where it comes up with the parent, because it makes it seem like we're not on a team and we're not working together. So we want to make sure that we let parents know we're on a team and really we want to do the best for the student. So please refer any complaints or issues over to Megan or I so that we can discuss it as a group.
Okay, so just so you're all in the loop of the potential possibility of us having a new trailer, it's coming. It might be coming, which will be amazing because currently we're all breathing in contaminants. So please know that this is something we're working on. This isn't the best environment for us to be in. I mean, we have paneling falling down, electricity that doesn't work, the AC is given in and out. It's pretty bad. So know that we're pushing for a trailer, and hopefully Tribal Council is on our side. They are, and they're gonna help us do that. After school tutors wanted. We're always in need of qualified after school tutors. So if you know of anybody who's interested and available, please have them email me their resume directly. At that point, we will then discuss adding them to the schedule. Today's invoice is due today. track your time under one of the students you worked with last year. If you're brand new to our team this year, just leave it blank and ask one of your neighbors to help you fill it out. The invoice number will be 8717, and then the date is going to be 8-7-17.
And as we're wrapping up, just if you guys have any questions, I know this is a lot of information, especially for those that are new. Yeah, it's a lot. So you can answer questions now, but if you need more of a specific, you can always reach out to Megan. We'll have all the answers. Yes.
The new email we're creating, is that what we're gonna send to teachers and parents and the VTech? That's what we're gonna use, we're not using our personal emails anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share something that is helping me. I had a hard time, even though I put it on my calendar and wrote notes on my desk, keeping track of, there are a lot of things that are due here and like things to keep on track of. So anybody that's interested, I have a new app called Google Keep, and all the green things with little check boxes are VTechs. And I did VTech August, VTech September. So every time Megan said a date today, I added it to that. And then when you check it off, it moves to the bottom. So anybody, I'm in the habit now, I did it 2 weeks ago, of looking at this every morning. It's better than having a calendar. It's called Google Keep. And you can make different notes, different colors.
Key as in K, like K-E-Y?
Keep.
Oh, keep.
And when I open up my Google Chrome on my computer, it's one of the little tiles along with Drive and all of that, so it's on there too. It's really helping me, so I wanted to share it.
Thank you.
Is it new?
I don't know, it's new to me.
Tell it everybody.
Yeah, I just wondered about the CPR, because I know, I think I'm due, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get it to that date that you wanted, the 16th. So do you guys offer CPR, or is that something that we go out and do ourselves, or?
Did you do it last summer for the district?
I can remember, I don't.
The district is offering it, but
Then we'll
not
do
by
it,
that
but
due
it
date.
won't be by that due date.
Okay, so that's a good point. If you have an upcoming CPR schedule where you can do it with the district you're employed with, just notify me that you're doing it on this day and time, and then it's gonna be submitted at this date.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Super.
Any other questions? We moving out. Should we do that first though? Because we still. Okay.
So everybody, we're gonna take a group picture after the trauma informed care presentation. We're not gonna do it now. Okay, sir. We're gonna do it after the trauma informed meeting.
If you are tutoring a high school student, you should know by now.
No.
Oh, okay, you don't know. Okay, so Atlee, Whitney, Lizette, Aiden, Ryan, and including Caroline. Carolina. You guys are staying with us for a little bit to discuss high school specific programming. We're the same, but we have some things that we have to cover that are just for high school students. So if you guys could stay, the rest of you can go to lunch.
Yes.
So we're sorry that we have to keep you sitting for a little bit longer, but our high school group we do things a little bit differently. We are trying to prepare these students for the real world, and a lot of that means, doing things a little bit different. And so we're going to talk about that. So welcome, and thank you for joining the high school team. Our group of high school students, they're a very eclectic and outgoing group. They all have very diverse and different backgrounds and goals and dreams, but all in all, I think they all have a desire to learn, and they all have a desire to do good in life. So this year we have 25 students who will be joining us, and if you look across the board, we don't have that many high school tutors. So we're going to have to do things a little bit differently. That might mean you'll be working with a couple more students than usual. But don't worry. well, we figured things out to make it a little bit, run a little bit smoothly, hopefully. So like having the math camp and things like that, we're hoping to make sure kids are doing what they can with their tutors, and then if they need math help, get that math help at math camp specifically. All right, so we have a bunch of high school specific programs. We have the high school on-site program that Jermaine and Becca, they go on site, meet with teachers and the students. We have the homework support, which is all of you guys. We have the Life Launchers program, which is goal setting and all of those kinds of things. And then we have incentives for our high school students that are specific to the high school.
So on-site programs, like she just said, Becca and I are both on-site. We're going to be there only on Mondays this year. It used to be Mondays and Wednesdays last year. It's only going to be Mondays. We're both going to be there tag teaming, ganging up on these kids, trying to get to them as best as we can. Of course, we'll see how it goes as the school year goes on, but for right now it's going to be on Mondays. Noelle touched on it. We talk with teachers, sit in on classes, talk with counselors, meet with admin once a month. So we're going to be there doing that same thing, no change from last year, only the days of the week. So we'll only be there on Mondays. After school tutoring, of course, you guys know that the kids are, when they're done, they get here about 3:45, and they're here tutoring, having math camp, missing assignment camp. They'll be here for until about 5, 6 on some days. Just depends on students. Life Launchers, they'll meet with Noelle. Noelle can go into more detail with that a little later. And then we have our incentive programs. The kids really like the Wednesday incentive. Of course, we're going to probably have to modify that, but of course, you all know Ryan's new to this, Carolina, you're new to this, but 3.0 students, they have the option, or not the option, they're able to participate in the 3.0 club to where they get a ride back up with me on Wednesdays instead of riding for an hour on the school bus. It takes an hour from Granite to get here, it's crazy. On-site support, this is our form, this is our schedule. On the left, you'll see the schedule, or the schedule from last year of Becca, where she was with her students and what classes she sat in on. On the right is the form that shows the information she gathered for that day. And I'll be doing the same thing this year. So instead of just stopping by and letting you know what assignments are missing and everything, I'm going to have that same printout on the right-hand side, letting you all know what information that I gathered for the day. Is this mine? Camps, high school camps, we went over in the orientation just a little while ago. Missing assignment camp, it is mandatory for students who have missing assignments, regardless of their GPA. If they have a missing assignment, they have to be here. Math camp, same thing, it's mandatory if they have a D, anything less than a C. D or an F, they have to come in for math camp. Of course, it's optional for other students. They may need help. They may want to hang around and get some assistance with math, but it's mandatory for students with less than a C. Spanish camp is going to be something that's new. And that will be on Mondays and Wednesdays from 5 to 6.
So you guys, what we're going to do is we're going to create like a schedule so you can see what kind of camps are going on in the high school center and where you should be pushing your kids to go. So, the reason why we have math camp is because a lot of our students struggle in math, and they could use that extra help. And that we're hoping will alleviate your high school tutor time too. So you're really focusing on what you can get done with the student that isn't math during that time that you're together with them. Okay, so the Life Launchers program, I'm just gonna wrap up this purpose really quickly. It's to provide Vieja students with individualized life guidance and planning that's in line with Vieja's goal of helping its people pursue their dreams and learn skills to build a stronger nation. So a lot of what I do with the students is that goal setting. I'm that positive little bird in the back of their head saying, you can do this. If you want to get this place, we need to do X, Y, and Z. So that's kind of what I do. And I meet with the students one-on-one. So what you'll be seeing is if sometimes I might pull your student from a tutoring session to speak with them and to have that kind of, one-on-one guidance. Because it doesn't always work that tutoring helps. Sometimes they need an extra words of wisdom. And it also helps, too, that I'm working with you so you can know, like, hey, this student really wants to go to this school. They need these grades. Hey, this student wants to do this summer program. In order to do this summer program, they need to write this essay. Do you guys have some time to spend on this essay during tutoring? So that's what I'm kind of helping you guys do. And I also have, during minimum days, I have these things called open lab sessions, and I usually bring in people to talk about higher education or careers, or I take the students somewhere like the college fair to go and visit, or Grossmont to go and check out like a college campus, things like that. So our incentive programs, like Jermaine talked about, our 3.0 club on Wednesdays is the most popular incentive for the students. They really like getting to ride in the van back in the Starbucks. We also have a computer loaner program that is every student who enters as a freshman gets loaned a computer. If they meet certain requirements, they get to keep the computer for each year. So that requirement is a 3.0 or higher GPA. They have to have that GPA plus some other things to keep that. So even if that's something you use to motivate your students, please do seek that out as something to do. We also have, our tutor stations. What you'll notice is when Megan sends out that calendar, students are in different places. Some students will be in certain places because they can't kind of handle that open setting that the high school center has. So it's kind of an incentive to sit in the high school center and tutor there. We also have the Benihana thing. We haven't had a student accomplish that yet, but this year, if you end the school year with a 3.0 or higher GPA, you will be eligible to go in to Benihana. So hopefully that motivates our students to get there. Okay, so high school teams. We have 2 teams this year. Becca will be taking on the 9th graders. So what that means is she's going to go into all the 9th grade classrooms. She'll be talking with the 9th grade tutors primarily. So she'll kind of oversee anyone who's working with a 9th grader. Jermaine will be the leader for 10th to 12th grade. So Jermaine was going to be in all of those 10th through 12th grade classes and will be working with those 10th through 12th grade teachers and parents also. Just me too? Yeah. Okay, so we have an expectation of our students to accomplish a C or better in their classes, especially with the support that is provided for them here, including all of these camps. I think our students do struggle in the math the most, and that's where we would see this kind of falling below, but all of these students are more than capable of doing these things. We expect the students to really use our resources because we provide a lot, and we expect our tutors to be, our students to be respectful of each other and our tutors and their staff. We expect our students to meet the requirements needed to pursue college if they desire and thus be college ready. And we expect our students to build self-advocacy skills, career readiness and awareness, and be culturally and communally engaged. And we really expect our kids to keep their MacBooks. We have tons of MacBooks sitting in our office right now because students did not meet the requirements needed to keep them. And that shouldn't be the case. Although you guys will all get to use them now. Yeah. So one of the big things, that teaching the students to be self-advocates is we want them to work on that teacher communication, right? Because when they go off to college or when they are in a job and they need to talk to the boss, it's them who needs to communicate a problem with the boss, or it's them that needs to communicate a problem with their teacher. So instead of you guys communicating with the teachers at Granite, you are required to have your student communicate once a week with.
In missing assignment camp. So every week I check grades. I used to check them on Mondays. This year it's going to change. I'm going to be checking grades on Fridays. Last year I tried to give the students the benefit of the doubt. Some teachers didn't put grades in until the weekend. Some teachers didn't put grades in at all. So I tried to give the students the benefit of the doubt to get grades in over the weekend. So Monday when I came in, I checked grades, but I'll be doing that on Fridays now. So once I get grades in, I'm going to do the same thing I do. Compile my spreadsheet, have all the students' grades, their current grades on there, and I'll have their missing assignments. So you all will know what missing assignment students have and if your student needs to go to missing assignment camp on Tuesday and Thursday. Tutors are expected to generate weekly progress report. Of course, it's redundant, but that's what we're really pushing for, making sure that you know what students need and what students have to have completed. Expected to check students' backpacks. We're going to have a backpack check, so that's there. Planners, they should have planners. Granite Hills gives out a planner to every student, so they should have a planner and they should be writing in it, letting you know what they have to do. Make sure that all students don't have their cell phone. As we mentioned earlier, some tutors will have like a jar at their desk. At the high school center, we have a big jar that students come in, they drop their phone in there, and we kind of mitigate that issue once they come in. And we obvious, but the tutor expectation is to make sure that the students are meeting their academic goals.
This is kind of just like what your schedule would look like, an example. So it would say like what your hours are for the people who are new and who you'll be working with as a student. So I talked about this a bit already about the parent communication. And like I said, you guys are communicating with the parents. You're providing them with their weekly progress reports for the students. With the teachers, it's the students are communicating with them weekly. But sometimes you might have to communicate. You might need to get a clarification for yourself, so feel free to do that. But also make whatever you're communicating meaningful. If it's to parents or to teachers, understand that teachers are busy and they might not get to it right away. So if you need something addressed right away, maybe go to Jermaine. If you're talking with parents, make it meaningful. For example, don't send something like attaches your progress report. Send something like, okay, here are some areas that this student did better in. Here are some areas that they didn't, just so the parents are a little bit more aware. Our high school students, parents, I think they kind of like let their child go at this point. You're going to make or break, but we're kind of holding them accountable, and we're trying to help parents kind of understand, hey, maybe there's something at home that you can be doing too with your student.
So just really quick, as I said, I've been talking about the weekly progress report. We went over it. Do you guys still have that sheet? I'm sure you guys have it in the packet. Just that I think there are only two of you are new. But this is the weekly progress report that's going to be sent out to each parent. The first column is the subject, their grade. This is the percentage. And this is all found on Infinite Campus. We'll have their information in their binder for you all. The missing assignments is most important because that's usually what's weighing down their grade. I mean, there are some students who have low grades because of their test scores. They have all their assignments in, but they have low test scores. But it's usually missing assignments that's really hurting their grades, and students really don't understand that a couple missing assignments brings their grade down a lot, especially when teachers only have 5 assignments in. You're missing 2 of them. That's huge. It's huge, and it's really hard to hone in on them and get them to understand that. But make sure that you're on them about that and that this is really comprehensive. The comment section, Becca touched on it in the video. Don't just write something generic. Of course, you want it to be meaningful. This action plan that we implemented last year, we want to know what you're going to do for your student to make sure that they get this work in or get this grade up. So that's very important, and it'll be highlighted probably for the years to come. But that's very important because some people would just put, okay, he's going to turn the work in. That's obvious. He's going to tell you that he's going to get the work in, or he or she's going to tell you to get the work in. But have a plan. Like, he's going to turn in on Tuesday. If he doesn't, follow up with it. So the same comment shouldn't be on there the following week. And then you have absences and tardies. All this information can be found on Infinite Campus. So once we log into their account, you guys have their login information. You can see what's going on with the student. Of course, same thing. I just went over this in detail. And our goal is...
So when the students come back to school, they're each going to set academic goals, individual academic goals, and that will kind of be your baseline, okay? So if the student says, I'm going to get these grades in these classes, that will be your baseline to hold them up to, right, and push them to. But as a whole high school team, these are our 2 goals. No Fs, we are more than capable than getting no Fs, and B or better in PE. This is one of those things, it's like kids won't run laps, and it's a silly grade to not have a B or better in. And it would really make a big difference in a lot of our GPAs if we had a B or better in PE, like drastic difference. I made a chart for the kids and I was like, look, if you had a B or better, you would have got, a huge difference in your GPA. So these are our 2 big goals for all of the high school center. And each of your students will also have individualized academic goals as well. So upcoming events, these are our mini days for this semester. What minimum days means is the students are going to get here at 1:10, so a lot of that time, what that means is all of your schedules will be a little bit different for that day. You'll either be coming in earlier, or the students will have language and they'll have a camp. It just depends. Sometimes they'll have a Life Launchers events, and those are to be determined when those will be. Those won't be till like 3:30 after. So they'll have their usual tutoring time, and then they'll have a Life Launchers event if it's on one of these minimum days.
The inner city, City Heights, Southeast San Diego, mostly. And then funding happened again 11 years later, only 11 years. And then now I'm actually back with Office of Violence Prevention, Chronic Disease Health Equity. But today I actually am wearing my community hat. I'm a member of the San Diego Trauma Informed Guide Team. You all are invited. I will email you information to how to join our webpage. We have an ACES Connection webpage, as well as for those of you who may want to take turns visiting, there's a bi-monthly meeting, six times a year. where you can meet other people who are really looking at how do we deliver our services in light of trauma-informed, resiliency building, whole person, strength-based. You've used these words before, I think. So let me just start. So what is the mission of the team that I'm part of? It's to promote the development and provision of trauma-informed services in San Diego County's agencies and systems through collaboration, advocacy, and education. And I hope that today we are going to help promote collaboration and advocacy as well as education. So I was told by Megan that some of you have attended trauma-informed trainings in the past. Can you raise your hand if you've read about it? Webinar, in person? Okay, that's good to know. So today, what are we doing together? We're going to increase the awareness of mental health symptoms. And actually, I'm borrowing somebody else's presentation because I liked some of what they had, but I'm going to actually tell you how some of the things that we're doing is different from some traditional other forms of services. How do you develop a trauma-informed approach when working with youth and families? How do you enhance skills to empower youth and families if they do want to consider mental health options? And then how do you promote use of behavioral health services? But the number 2 is what we're focusing on today, because really everyone has experienced trauma, and it's one of those 100% things. If you have a trauma-informed approach, you will support 100% of the population, because it's something that is common to people, common to humanity. So some questions. And this is actually, how many of you here are in the education field? Do you all work K through 12, or some of you are, who works with preschool, little ones? Who works with school-aged, younger, 1 through 4 maybe, 1st through 4th grade? And who works with some of the older kids? A lot of older kids. Actually, let me split that. Middle school? God bless you. High school? Wonderful. I have 2 boys, 10 and 5, terrified of middle school. Like, please tell me, we can skip it? Can we skip it? No, we have to do middle school. Okay, fine. All right. And how can you be in a better position to support youth and families? I keep on saying youth and families because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're just not dealing with kids here, right? You deal with their parents. You deal with guardians, other relatives. So I'm really including the whole family here. Because even though perhaps in your program you're working one-on-one with youth, their world is bigger, and then who you interact with is bigger. Am I on the right track here? Okay. And then if needed, are you better able to refer clients to services? Okay. Understanding trauma. We'll briefly touch on some anxiety disorders and depression, because these are words and language that people use. So I just want you to be familiar with that. Assessment and supports, and then empowerment. And I define empowerment a little bit differently, because for me, empowerment really is what can you do to empower children and families. So, yes, you want to empower others out there, but you have to do it by doing something. It's not just, I want you to be empowered. What steps can you take? I want this to be really action-oriented, and then I'm leaving room for discussion afterwards, so put on your thinking caps. If you have questions, if you have challenges, if some of this reminds you of a situation that happened, jot it down, and we'll bring that up in the conversation time. So what is trauma? How do you understand it? What does this mean for us? One of the deepest fears for trauma survivors is that they will be unable to reconnect with the normal world. And, trauma has a pretty broad definition. It's the experience of violence and victimization, which includes sexual abuse, physical abuse, and this is all in your notes, and I will also email this to you, including severe neglect, loss, domestic violence, witnessing violence, terrorism, or disasters. When I give this training, I give this to people who work for family resource centers, Medi-Cal applications, and they're not dealing with sexual abuse, physical abuse, but they're dealing with loss. Give me an example of loss for someone who's seeking financial assistance. What kind of loss have they experienced? Job loss.
Their home.
Maybe their home. Maybe their family is falling apart. What else? Spouse. They could have, yeah, divorce. There's family loss. Just to be really transparent, over the last week and a half, my family has been going through a lot. My husband lost his dad, my father-in-law, and my son lost his only grandpa that he's known all his life, you know. So to me, sometimes people say, oh, it's victimization. Oh, it's so big. Only some people experience sexual abuse. Only some people experience terrorism. But the 100% is when you look at words like loss, right? We all experience loss. You know, car accidents, I think another slide. Car accidents, serious incidents, health concerns, hospitalization. Somebody mentioned job loss, loss of a loved one, you know, disasters, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes. You know, we live here in California where there's always this looming thing of, you know, there could be an earthquake. I met someone who's from New York, and for the first 6 months of life, of their time in California, they were just anticipating, when's the earthquake going to happen? When's the earthquake going to happen? And it's like, you know, you gotta chill. We don't know. Yeah. Do you have your disaster kit ready? You know, this doesn't have to be something you worry about. Do you have your disaster kit ready, please? Witnessing violence. This was a big deal when I was working with in southeastern San Diego and City Heights. Many of the youth there, and I'm sure it's the same thing wherever we are here in the county, they witness community violence outside the home. They may witness violence in the home, and that's something that they carry with them, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Experiencing their own emotional, physical, sexual abuse. That's a lot, right? There's a lot of things, and the interesting thing is you don't have to know what someone experienced. I think that's one of the reasons why I really feel that the whole concept of trauma-informed care is our response. We don't have to do an assessment. We don't need to know what someone experienced. I believe it's Cleveland, Ohio. I should find out for sure. They have a special program between Child Welfare Services, law enforcement, and the school system. And it's called Handle with Care. And those are the only 3 words that they share with the school for a student. That something happened, handle with care. And they are very adamant. You do not ask the child what happened. All you do is you handle with care. And I just thought it was a wonderful example of you don't need to know this. All you need to know is your response. And even though chances are it'd be nice to handle all your students with care, what a great program to give someone extra insight that if this student is just not, you know, doing well in your class, oh, I was told to handle with care, right? That's one example, a beautiful example. You know, Child Welfare Services, law enforcement. Is that the coolest thing? That they have that awareness to reach out to an institution that has the kids all day, and they give them that the teachers that kind of empowerment. It can occur at any age. Yeah, it's okay. Any race, gender, ethnicity. There's no boundaries in the workforce, youth, elders, and everybody. I really appreciate this slide because it talks about the different categories of trauma, because not everybody experiences trauma in the same way. There could be a single traumatic event one time. Can you give an example of one singular big event?
Parent being hospitalized.
Hospitalized. Anything else?
Car accidents.
Car accidents.
Fires out in this area.
Right.
In their house and they're tired.
Right. And so it's one, and that can have long-term effects on someone, because sometimes could relate to chronic trauma. A fire could lead to a loss of your home. Then that single incident now becomes the experience of multiple traumatic events. You lose your home, you have to move around, now you maybe have to change schools. You know, a lot of this can happen, and so chronic trauma is something that happens over time. You know, an example is an alcoholic family member. That happens over time. Multiple exposure to something. And then complex trauma is what I consider like a stacking, you know, trauma on top of trauma. Chronic trauma and the impact of exposure. There's both exposure from chronic trauma, and each individual trauma can have an impact. So what happens with chronic complex trauma is that because you've already been exposed to trauma, you're going to respond to that one incident, like a car accident or a fire, possibly differently from other people, because you've already had all these things on top that you've been handling, and now it's one more thing. And then something that's hard to be honest about is system-induced trauma. Biggest example, child welfare services. Wanting to protect a child from drug exposure. They're making meth in the home. I don't have a whole slide on it because we don't have a lot of time, but I would encourage you all to explore the idea of self-care. Is that something that you talk about on a regular basis? It can be self-care within your work setting, and it can be self-care outside. And I'll send you a little handout that I've used before. I think it's called 1 to 5 minutes of self-care. And it can be something as simple as closing your eyes, taking a deep breath. It can be at the end of the day, I take off this badge. Leave everything, you know, that's symbolic. I leave everything at the office, you know. And, you know, so everybody has their own examples of self-care because we need it, because vicarious trauma is actual, it has an impact. And this is the video that I wanted to show. It's a 3-minute video called Healing Need. This is from the National Trauma Stress Network. And this is a story of someone who experienced multiple traumas, and now she is part of the healing process for others. Let me see if this works. Okay. Oh, it doesn't work. Let's go to this link. You know what? I just realized, where's Megan? I think because I switched computers, this computer isn't on the internet. Okay, I'm going to send you the link. But I'm going to share a little bit about, her name is Tutor Orientation. Behind her are the mugshots. She had been arrested 66 times and convicted, I believe, 50 times. She had spent time in local jail, county jail, state prison, arrested for drugs, prostitution. It's actually a 1.5 hour documentary. But it's very difficult to watch because it recounts her. You know what? I just realized my computer doesn't have internet access. You know what? It's easier. It's just a 3-minute video. It's okay. It tells her story of child abuse, of her mom's multiple boyfriends' sexual abuse to her at a very young age, how she started drinking at the age of 9 to start coping. And so, you know, there's a history of why you see this person being arrested 66 times, homeless, not able to keep a job, not wanting to keep a job, not wanting to have relationships. And then through her healing and through her linkages with trauma services, she became the trauma champion at the national level. So she actually went back to some of those prisons in Alabama and held support groups for women. And one of the scenes in that little 3-minute trailer is someone who said, "Your story is my story." And she said, "And then you can be like me." So she just, you know, really that hope. But it was a process, and you know, she got her kids back. She had her kids removed from child welfare, and she was able to get her kids back. So Oh, so this doesn't show. I'm just gonna, really quick, can you see this? Each person is on their journey. Sorry, I don't know how to make this a little bit smaller. Each person is on their journey because you don't know. You don't know the child who will never ever listen to you, who, you know, it's Thursday and all week long they've been a challenge. How can you even get through another day for Friday, right? You don't know their journey, where they came from, and then the beautiful part is you don't know where they're going. And you are a piece of the puzzle to support not only that child but that family in their healing and in their acceptance. And one of the most important things about child development, and why I'm so grateful for all of you, is that that connection with either an adult mentor or someone that they can learn to trust or someone that believes in them really is what provides resiliency for kids. And so never underestimate that you're just not teaching them math, how to do their homework, how to sit still, you know, those are important. But you're also teaching them that someone believes in me. You're also teaching them that I'm going to give you another chance because maybe they've never been given another chance. And so those are the things that are so valuable. So I really hope that that's something you can remember when you're exhausted, right? You're exhausted. And this person, this young person or this parent, do you guys have like parents who do late pickups? You know, I mean, like the parent is late again, you know, and that's also me sometimes, I have to confess. You know, yes, this parent has a lot of issues, right? But they're on a journey too. And you know, we don't see where their journey is going to lead them. Okay? A lot of this you've heard of. Trauma-informed care is the holistic picture. Promote safety, earn trust, embrace diversity, look at the holistic view of the youth and the families, respect human rights, pursue strengths. I mean, I could spend a long time talking about each one of these, but you know, you've heard a lot of this before. And so what I want to, you know, communicate with compassion, then the top is what we've spent the most time on, is understanding the prevalence and impact of trauma. So, you know, what I usually do is I do both. We work with individuals, but we also work with agencies. You know, have you looked at your intake forms? Do you look at your waiting rooms? Do you look at, you know, your screening tools? How do you train your workforce? All of these are part of the whole picture because, you know, you could be so excited about trauma-informed care, but if your agency isn't doing something about it, you're kind of working upstream. So that's what the guide team is trying to do, is work from both sides. Like, how do you support individuals, but how do you also support agencies at the same time? I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about some disorders because these are categories that exist. Some people self-identify, some people are diagnosed, some are not. You know, there are panic disorders, people have phobias, obsessive compulsive disorders, generalized anxiety, PTSD. I'm not going to go through all of these examples, but one of the things that happens is that, you know, some people do get treatment for certain things that are labeled. But tell me, if someone has obsessive compulsive disorder, does that talk about who they are as a parent? No. Does that talk about who they are as a student? No. It's one behavior. And even the way the DSM-5 now, is it 5? I lose track. You know, it talks about what has happened in this person's life over the last 6 to 12 months. It's still not them as a whole person. So I'm putting this up here not to promote it. You know, you can agree with it or disagree with it. You know, I'm very, very sensitive to that. In the community, we're very, very sensitive. You can agree or disagree with some of these labels, but they are out there. And I just want you to be aware that, you know, these are how people sometimes have experience in their life. So PTSD is kind of one of the most common ones, and I'll just read that one. PTSD can develop after a severe physical or emotional trauma, such as a natural disaster, serious accident, or crime. So what are these symptoms? They can include flashbacks of the trauma, nightmares, frightening thoughts that interfere with a person's everyday routine for months or years after a traumatic accident. So an example of this is, how many of you have had a car accident, and when you pass that area on the road or the freeway, you have a sudden flashback, or just, you know, it's something you don't have control over it. So that's an example of how there's symptoms related to some of these things that a person may or may not have control over. You can work with someone, right? You can work with therapy, so that when you know that you're going to be driving on the 5 South or whatever, you know, and you're going to pass by that area, how do you manage your feelings? How do you manage your emotions so that you can go through and make it to that appointment where you have to cross through that place, or not drive off the road because all of a sudden you remember this is where you had a really severe accident. So, you know, a lot of what the services that we offer, you know, the good news is that we don't only look at these labels, but we look at the family as a whole. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these, but you know, the challenge for some of these diagnoses is that they overlap, right? Trouble sleeping. Trouble sleeping can be how many different things? Fatigue, irritability, sweating, trembling, headaches, easily startled. So you could actually see some of these symptoms, and again, you don't know why. And you know what? You don't have to know why. All you can see is if someone is really being distracted, you know, handle with care, right? Handle with care. And then if it's something that to consider, you might want to connect them to services. So PTSD, they can re-experience triggers. They can avoid triggers. Like I mentioned, someone may not want to drive down that road that they had a car accident. So how do you help them? You know, it's something that they're going to have to work with. I'm not going to go through all of this. Depression, very common. Depression is the most common mental health disorder. Social isolation increases the risk of depression. There's different kinds of therapies. And there's also, I like this part about exercise. There's different things that people can do to support individuals. So what we talk about is, you know, not every kid needs therapy, but they could enjoy basketball. They could enjoy art. They could enjoy exercise. There's so many ways to support someone. So I'm going to just jump through some of these things because I think we're running. I don't have a time. Time check? Does anybody know what time it is? 2 o'clock. Okay. All right. Because I want to leave room for discussion. You've heard of the term resiliency. There's also protective factors. So there's so many other ways. So even if someone has a diagnosable mental health disorder, or if someone who's undiagnosed, it's more than just services or therapy. There's support, supportive relationships. There are services, of course, religious, cultural beliefs. And this is a different slide about suicide, community involvement, social integration. So again, going back to your role, you're the community involvement, social integration. You know, you are a very important piece. Who knows 211? Who's called 211? Awesome. Okay. So does anybody know what 211 is? No. So 211 is the social services phone number, where instead of like you call 911 for an emergency, you call 411, I think, for information, and then 211 is for social services. So there's a very strict criteria for getting on the 211 website. There's also the website 211 San Diego. Many major cities in the United States have a 211 line. It should work on cell phones, but definitely works from landlines. And you basically call 211 24/7. I believe they have it in multiple languages. So either a service provider or a family or a youth can call 211 and say, I'm looking for, you know, I have this they'll go through a criteria and find out what they need. And so if someone is homeless, if someone is looking for some kind of mental health assessment, if someone's looking for, food stamps, first 5 classes, for early childhood, 211 has all that information, and you can also go to their website. I also brought copies because I don't want to kill trees. This is from 2014, but I'll pass this around. These are the funded programs from the county behavioral health services, and I did flip over to prevention and early intervention, and there are some funding programs directed towards American Indian populations. So there's the Outreach and Prevention Education Indian Health Council Dreamweaver Consortium, and I can send you the link to all of these. There's also the Siquan Medical Dental Center, Southern Indian Health Council, Urban Indian Youth Center, and this is countywide. There's a lot of services that may not be appropriate, but I just wanted to share this with you. Okay, pass that down. And then what's also very exciting is that San Diego includes school-based services. And so there's a link on the website, and I can share that with you. But depending on the school, there are actually nonprofit agencies that are assigned for each school. So that school has a nonprofit agency linked towards them. So they can provide services at the school. So I'm going to go straight into supportive care. So supportive care is what's not considered mental health services. All the different kinds of ways we can be supportive. And then there's going to be a slide in a second about how to react to someone. But and it's things that we know. Being helpful, attentive, calm. So this is where I want you to start thinking. Are there times where someone has either pushed your button or a child is so challenging that maybe it's hard to be helpful? Is it hard sometimes to be helpful, attentive, calm, efficient, right? Open, positive? So I think that's the question that we can all ask ourselves. What can you do to give yourself that little self-check? And for every single person, it's different, How do you give yourself a self-check? And somebody said, I leave to go make a copy. Just say, I need to be out of the room, and they'll just say, I need to make a copy. So they'll go out of the room. Sometimes you just need to separate yourself from someone who's challenging and then go back. Or sometimes you just want to talk to someone, so it's not something you can handle right there. But if there's someone that you can talk to, either a supervisor or a coworker, and then, the next time it happens, you'll be a little bit better prepared. So, of course we're all supposed to be helpful, attentive, calm, efficient. But the question is, when someone is either pushing our buttons or they're so challenging, what can we do just to help strategize? What strategies can we use to better address that? Does anybody have a story? This is story time. Can someone give an example of something that you've done to help yourself when someone is really not easy to deal with? Yes?
I've left my classroom and gone next door
Mm-hmm.
and had the other teaching partner check on my kids because I just needed to talk to her and breathe and take a moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example. And yes? Send a student on an errand. Yeah. Yeah. Redirect. Maybe that student needs a different kind of assignment, right? Yes.
Sometimes I've actually just acknowledged with the student,
Mm-hmm.
like, we're having a rough moment here.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
still care about you.
Yeah.
And then just take it, just bring it down, just simmer it down, and just have a real moment, be honest, and then move forward.
Yeah, and what's great about that? It's not about the assignment, it's about the student.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great example. Okay, any others before we move on? What's something that you do when someone's really challenging? This doesn't have to be related to school. Make it for your work. Okay, and so again, empowerment. These are things we heard of, coping mechanisms, previous experience. If you know this individual, actually it's kind of that PTSD thing. You know this individual is going to be challenging. What can you do to prepare? You know, even write a little note to yourself about what you can do when you know there's an individual or parent, or you're having those difficult conversations with someone. Seek support, that was a great example. And then resiliency. And this resiliency is all around. Resiliency is for you. Resiliency is also for that youth. Because how much better for that individual, that youth, when they have someone who validates their feelings, instead of hammering them about finishing their assignment, someone actually understands that I have feelings. So again, that's part of resiliency and hope. Okay. And you know, we talked a little bit about this. You can observe what's going on in the situation. You can ask questions. How do you engage them in a different way, perhaps? Provide them assistance. Either you can provide assistance or get assistance from elsewhere, and then connect them to that support. So I'm going to show, okay, so this is something that I wanted to acknowledge, that triggers for trauma survivors, it's different. And the example is a lightning bolt. Is a lightning bolt something that just makes it just normal every day? Just kind of no, it just comes out of the blue. It's very powerful. And so that's what a trigger is. It's something that they may not expect, and it's very powerful. It's very hard to just ignore a bolt of lightning. And so this is somebody's artistic rendition, that there can be a normal conversation. It looks like there might be therapy going on, there might be a IEP maybe. And already it's not an easy conversation, right? Not easy to have these adults and these youth together, but for a trauma survivor's experience, it may be even more challenging. So, did I do the little buttons one? Oh, I skipped that one. There's a little keyboard with different faces and little emojis, because I talked about pushing your buttons. But your response is key. So the red is the trigger. The trigger is going to happen either with the individual, the youth, they didn't bring their backpack, you know, or they snapped at you, or, you know, someone's ignoring you, someone's staring out the window. I mean, that's pretty common, right? Completely checked out. No, and you know, you have no idea what's going on. Why is someone staring out the window completely checked out? So there's a non-trauma informed response and a trauma-informed response. So I added this little thing about greater chance for, because, you know, there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees that if you don't have a trauma-informed response, you're going to get a negative outcome. But it's, you know, more likely. And then a trauma-informed response is a greater chance for a positive outcome. So let's give that example of a child looking out the window and completely not aware of what's going on. What is a trauma-informed response for someone who's looking off into space and you've already asked them to do something 3 times? Is this common? Does this happen? What? You can ask if you're okay.
Something, can I help you?
Uh-huh. And what else? What's a response when someone is just not paying attention?
Do you need to take a break?
Do you need to take a break? What else?
You just
Let them
go through what
stare?
they're going through.
You know what? That's true.
Sometimes we need to do that.
Just tap them on the shoulder, something just a gentle, or just to get them back with me,
Right.
so that they know I see them.
Yeah, and I actually want to acknowledge, tell me your name?
Gina.
Gina, I want to acknowledge what Gina said about just let them. Is it really that bad? You know, if you have, how long do you have with the students usually? About an hour. If they need to stare out the window and process something for 5 or 10 minutes, is that okay? You know, if they don't have a lot, if your schedule isn't that tight, that's probably very helpful for them, because there might be something that's triggering them, and what they needed was that space. That's a really great example.
I think sometimes that we're so focused on get this done,
Mhm.
get this done, because there's so much pressure to get
Yeah.
everything done.
Mhm.
To see
test scores and just
Mhm.
that every minute for us becomes so valid that we even forget ourselves. And then
Mhm.
when students have trauma in their lives, or even we have trauma in our lives,
Mhm.
that we don't realize this is just a blip if we or they do not
Mhm.
get whatever we were talking about, or if
Right.
I don't reteach this to them at this moment,
Mhm.
you know, that it's just a blip in their life compared to what
Mhm.
they have experienced and where they're going. It's not,
Mhm.
you know, it's not life-threatening that they
Right.
have tuned us out or whatever it is.
So that's a really great example. So what are the 2 responses now from that youth? If you had not given them a trauma-informed response, if you banged on the paper, the page in front of them, if you put that, the pencil back into their hands or whatever, how do you think that youth is going to respond? Shut down. Well, there, you just and then now how much time did you lose?
All of it.
All of it, right. And so now if I heard a lot of wonderful examples of the trauma-informed response. If you were more understanding, if you asked if they were okay, if you gave them just 5 or 10 minutes, what is it a greater chance of? What is their response? Yes. Not a happy conversation. But they said, let's turn it around. Let's say it's at 80%. We got your claim, but I want to help you with the last few steps to make some corrections so that we can, well, let me go back. They said that they would say that their claims were denied. The doctor would be furious. They would then strategize and help fix it so that they can be paid. So that was part of the conversation, but because at the beginning they said your claim was denied, they were already mad and they really didn't want to work with them. So the conversation was, I'm here to help you get your claim processed completely. Is that completely different? Because you're going to have that conversation already, right, about how to fix it so that they can be paid. So why don't you just tell them, let's fix this so that you can be paid? Completely different reaction, completely different conversation. Okay, and we kind of gave that example for, and you know what, I would encourage you, do this exercise for yourself, and it's going to be a little different for the little preschoolers, of course, compared to the high school students. But can you, this is homework that I'm not going to check, but I'm going to give you homework. Come up with, just 3 to 5 examples of something that's punitive, negative, and then come up with something, those same exact situation, but can you think about another positive way to do it? Okay. I'm not going to ask you to turn in your homework. And so I'll send this to you as well, and this is the videos that I wanted to show you. I should have had a timepiece. How much time do we have now? 2 or 3 minutes, I'm so sorry. Okay, but so let's just turn this off. Okay, do you have any other questions or any other situations that you can think of that you wanted to bring up? Was this helpful for you?
Yes. Very much.
Okay. Is there something you want to know more of?
With the kids that if you see trouble or you think trouble's at home, how much can you ask of them? Like,
Okay.
how detailed do you need to get?
So the question here is if there's kids who have trouble at home, how much can you ask of them? And I think that depends on the program and depends on your support. Because if your program includes either a social worker or your program is linked very closely with another program, you can either refer out or you can ask just a few leading questions so that you can then immediately go to someone else in your program or your agency and get them linked to that. So I think it just really depends on what access to resources you feel you have, because I wouldn't feel comfortable asking questions and then if you get an answer, you wouldn't know what to do next. Does that make sense? I found out that Family Health Center clinics, so their prenatal program, they have a roving social worker. So they are required by law to do a domestic violence assessment. But what's wonderful is even though the staff person who's doing the domestic violence assessment is taking the assessment, they don't have to do the counseling, right? But they're mandated to do that assessment. So it's kind of that example. You want to be able to take advantage of that face-to-face time you have with someone who you know is having a challenging time. But then they're able to refer immediately. And for them, they can actually make a phone call and have someone. That's the beauty of being in the inner city. People are usually about 15 minutes away. They don't have to drive out from, a million miles. Not a million. You guys were like 35 minutes away.
Feels like a million.
Yeah. Was there a supervisor here? Was that something that you guys kind of feel? It's hard because, and I think it also depends on each person, because if you don't feel comfortable, and this is something I wanted to also share, if you don't feel comfortable asking questions, like I said, you don't have to. You can just treat everyone, like someone maybe staring out the window, you can treat everyone the same way. But if someone is, if you're worried about someone being homeless because they've worn the same clothes 3 days in a row, and they're not eating or whatever, if someone is really displaying concerns, for their safety, I'm sure you guys are all mandated reporters, right? Or if it appears that someone is really struggling, they're wearing the same outfit 3 days in a row, it might be appropriate to pull them aside or wait for their guardian or their parent and pull them aside and share. But I wouldn't do that unless you already let other people in your program know and figure out the best way to do that. Because what a wonderful opportunity to be able to help support this family, but also make sure that you have all the resources that you need. Okay? Well, I don't want to go over to the next speaker, but I want to thank all of you guys for your attention, and I will stay for a few more minutes if anybody else has questions. Thank you.